Okay, what are we going to talk about tonight? We're going to figure out and define what financial aid really is. We're going to explain what it means by cost of attendance, what is an expected family contribution, how do we determine financial need, the types and sources of financial aid, the process, how do you go about getting financial aid, reminders, resources, and at the end, like I said, we'll have questions and answers. What is financial aid? Financial aid consists of any funds that are provided to students and families to help pay for their college education. Regardless of where the money comes from, if it's money that helps the student to attend college, it is considered financial aid. Okay, what is cost of attendance? We have tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, transportation, and miscellaneous personal items. Okay, tuition and fees. What does it cost you to actually go to school? What is your tuition? And what are the fees associated with your particular program or fees that the college may charge for various things? And that can vary from college to college. Tuition can vary. Room and board. Where are you going to stay and what are you going to eat? Room is where you stay. Board is what you're going to eat. If you're at a residential campus, you're talking about your cafeteria plan for board, and you're talking about possibly a dormitory or staying off campus. If you're at a non-residential campus like MC, you still need to stay someplace, whether you're staying with family or you're staying on your own, it still costs you money, and you still have to eat, whether you're eating, buying your own food or eating in the cafeteria. You've got to eat, so we do include room and board charges. Books and supplies. That is one thing a lot of times people forget to add in. Depending on your major, you may have different kinds of supplies. Everybody's going to need to have notebooks. Everybody's going to need to have pens and pencils. Depending on what your situation is, you may need computer access. You may need certain software programs. But you're also going to need books. Books today are different than books years ago. You can have an actual book. Books cost a lot of money. Books can run you anywhere from $10 to $300 and some dollars. You can also, at this point, have electronic books, books online. And some classes exclusively use books online. You also can use used books. You can rent books. There are all different kinds of ways to get your books. This is something you need to ask any institution that you're going to, and ask and look for your classes to see what they provide. Are there e-books? Is it a book you want to buy? Do you want to do a used book? This is something that can make a big difference in the money that you have to lay out. Again, on supplies. If you are an art major, you're going to have art supplies, which are going to cost you money, so you need to think about those things. If you're a music major and you need to maintain an instrument, so make sure you're looking and adding those things in. Transportation, you have to get back and forth. If you live here in Maryland and you decide to go to college in California, there's going to be transportation to get you back and forth. If you live in Montgomery County and you decide to go to Montgomery College, you still have to get back and forth. If you live around the corner and you have to walk, you still have to buy shoes, okay? There's going to be some kind of way you have to get here. So we do include transportation costs in. All schools, and a lot of schools, depending on where you're going to school, if they have a lot of students that are from out of state, they may even include in charges for going back and forth home at different times during the year. Miscellaneous and personal expenses. This is the one that we all have to look at. How many, how many students do we have? Somebody, if you're a student, raise your hand. All right. Now my guess is when you got up this morning, or yesterday morning, depending on how you do it, you had to take a shower at some point. And my guess is when you went into the bathroom, there was soap there. And there's probably toothpaste and deodorant and toilet tissue and all those nice things that just happen to appear. Well, if you go away to school and you're on your own, or you get into an apartment and you're on your own, those things may not just be there because somebody else is providing them. You have to provide them yourself. So we include miscellaneous personal expenses. The other thing is, when you go to school, you go to get an education, but you want to be a well-rounded individual. So you also may want to go to a movie, or rent a movie, or go out and have dinner at some point. Go someplace, have some fun. Miscellaneous expenses. So we put a little money into the budget so that we know there are things you're going to need to do socially and personally, and hygiene that you need to have. You need to wash clothes, okay? So when you look at a cost of attendance for a college, it includes all these things. The tuition and fees are the ones you probably cannot control. All of the rest of them you may be able to control. You can control whether, if you're in a dormitory, whether you're in a dormitory with a single room or a double room or a quad. You can control if you're going to stay on campus or stay at home. Are you going to run with your family, or are you going to rent with a friend? You can control sometimes how much food you eat and what meal plan you may have. But tuition and fees, that's the one that's not going to change. Expected family contribution. This is a measurement of the student's family's ability to pay. When you fill out the free application for federal student aid, there's a calculation. And the calculation is a calculation that's used all over the country. It's used in states, in Puerto Rico, in Guam, all the U.S. territories. If you're applying for aid in the U.S., it's the same calculation. What comes out of this calculation is what's called an EFC, Expected Family Contribution. It stays the same for that academic year regardless of what school you go to. And the reason I'm saying that is it's calculated. It does not change. It is not adjusted for where you live. We live in an area where our costs are extremely high. But regardless of whether you live in Montgomery County, Maryland, or whether you live in LA, another high place, or whether you live in a small town in South Dakota, that family contribution, the calculation, the way they calculate it is the same. Now, how do you get need? They take the cost of attendance, how much it costs you to go, those things we looked at before, and we subtract from that the expected family contribution, and that's how you get your need. The cost of attendance can change based on where you go to school. If you go to a four-year private, you're going to have a much larger cost of attendance. If you go to a four-year public, it's going to be lower. If you go to a two-year public, it's going to even be lower. So the cost of attendance does change. The expected family contribution stays the same. This is why you may have different need depending on where you're going to school. Okay, once you've done the FAFSA, once you've gotten expected family contribution, and you've decided you're going to school, what kind of aid are you going to get? There's gift aid and self-help aid. Gift aid, your grants and scholarships, they do not have to be paid back. Self-help, your student employment and your loans. You work, employment is student employment, but it's just like any other job. You work and you get paid. Loans are loans, they're low-interest student loans, but they do have to be paid back. Okay, grants, money you get that does not have to be paid back. Basically, most of your grants are based on financial need. And again, it's calculated based on that family contribution from the FAFSA. Different with scholarships, scholarships also don't have to be paid back, but they're generally based on merit, skill, some type of unique population, and they also may be based on need. But when you look at a merit scholarship, it's generally because you do something well. You have good grades. You may be in the band or in the choir. You may sing well, or you may play an instrument well. You may be an athlete. But those are the kind of things you look at with scholarships. Student employment. Again, this allows students to work on campus or off campus and earn money to pay for educational costs. Again, the student and employment determine the schedule and how many hours a week you work, and money is earned, but it does not have to be paid back. In most cases, on your campuses, your work-study jobs can range anywhere from 8 hours a week to 20 hours a week. That's generally an average. And in most cases, you're paid at above, just at or above the minimum wage. Loans. Loans, money students and parents borrow to pay for college costs. In most cases, especially at four-year schools, you will always be awarded a loan. You do not have to accept a loan. When we award loans, we put it out as offered, and you can accept it. Even if you're at a school that puts it out automatically, you can decline it. In this day and time, most people are not going to get through their education without borrowing some loans. You want to borrow as little as possible. Only borrow what's needed. In most cases, repayment begins after you are no longer a student. What generally happens if you stay in school at least half-time, that's considered 6 hours, it doesn't come due. And that's if you finish your undergrad education. If you go on to a graduate school and you're still enrolled, you still have to pay it back. Once you decide to leave school, either you graduate or you decide to stop going, that's when your loans become due. And they give you a little bit of a grace period in there, so get yourself together. But while you're in school, in most cases, you don't have to pay them back. Okay, where does financial aid come from? The majority of it comes from the federal government. In the state of Maryland, we have a lot of money that comes from the state government, your educational institutions. And a little later, I will show you some of the money we have here, so you have an example of what you should be looking for. Schools give money in a lot of cases, and a lot of organizations give money to schools for students. As you're applying to school, you should be asking those questions, not just from the financial aid department, but also from the admissions department and from the programs that you choose to major in. Always make sure you go out and ask, is there any money for me based on certain circumstances? And then private sources. Okay, what type of aid is available from the federal government? In most cases, you're talking about your need-based aid, grants, work, study, and loans. But some of the loans are not need-based. How do you apply for federal government? That's the FAFSA again, the free application for federal student aid. You need to do it every year. When do you apply? For 19-20 year? Complete it now. If you are currently planning to be in college this fall or this spring or the upcoming summer, you want to do the 19-20. So even if you are a senior in high school and you think you may be going to start early in summer, you want to do the 19-20. If you're going to start in the fall of 20, you want to do the 20-21. They are always now available on October 1. One of the things you want to look at is deadlines, because each school has different deadlines for different things. So just because the FAFSA is available on October 1, you need to look and see what other deadlines your schools have and for different programs. Okay, we said the largest amount of aid comes to the federal government. Who's eligible for aid from the federal government? You have to be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. And there are a long list of eligible non-citizens, so if there are questions, we can look at that later. You have to have a valid Social Security number. You have to comply with Selective Service registration if required. You have to have a high school diploma, a GED, or have completed an approved homeschool program. Be working towards an eligible degree or certificate program. Another thing to ask, make sure when you're going to school that the program that you are enrolled in is an eligible program. Maintain satisfactory academic progress once enrolled. All right, what is satisfactory academic progress? What that means is, once you go to school, you need to get good grades. You need to maintain academics. You need to also not consistently drop out of classes. And we hope you move on from one level to the other. Financial aid will pay, in most cases, for 150% of whatever your program is. That's a degree and a half. In other words, you cannot be an eternal student. There are students who have been in school for 20 years. As long as they're moving along, but you have to move along. You can't stay forever in one place because financial aid will not pay for it. And you have to take courses in your declared program of study. That's another one. We like to experiment, and that's fine, but make sure you are taking classes in whatever major it is you think you're in. If you decide that's not the major for you, it's okay to change majors. Just make sure you do it officially, because when it comes time to pay your financial aid, it's going to look at the program you said you're in. And if you're taking classes in a program that you're not in, they're not going to get paid for. These are the various programs that are available through the federal government. And they are also listed on the sheet of paper you have, the one that says Financial Aid at a Glance. We'll go through them individually. The federal Pell Grant is the largest grant program. It is need-based. It's for undergrad students. Lifetime eligibility, use 6 years of full-time enrollment. Again, you can't stay in school forever. And as of this year, the awards are, the max award, if you're a full-time student, that's 12 or more hours, is $6,195 for the year. Now, when you are awarded financial aid, it's generally split between the fall and the spring semester. So you get a large amount, like the $6,000, and then you get half of it for fall and half of it for spring. The Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, FSEOG, is also for undergrad students with exceptional need. In most cases, it goes to the same students who get Pell Grant. The max award currently is $4,000. And if the appropriations are there and the government votes on it, there'll be an increase every year. Sometimes it stays the same, sometimes it increases, especially the Pell Grant. It may go up a little bit each year. Iraq and Afghanistan Service Grant. This is for undergrad students who are not Pell eligible. But in order to qualify, your parent or guardian had to have died as a result of U.S. military service in Iraq or Afghanistan after September 11, 2001. It awards up to the maximum amount of the Pell Grant. Teach Grant. If you want to be a teacher, there is a grant for those who want to be teachers. Every school does not have Teach Grant, so that's something you want to ask. If you want to be a teacher and you're looking at schools, ask them, do they participate in the Teach Grant program? It does not have to be repaid unless the student fails to carry out the 4-year service obligation. There is a service obligation. For each year you get the grant, they want you to teach in the state of Maryland. You can get up to $4,000. If you decide not to teach, then that is, you will have to repay for each year you are not teaching of the loan. Each year you got the loan, you have to repay. You got the loan for 2 years, you have to repay for 2 years. If you got the loan for 4 years, you repay for 4 years. But the Teach Grant is not need-based. Federal Work Study, working on campus or off-campus based employment. Again, you get paid. It's a job. You don't have to pay it back. You work, you get paid. You can be undergrad or grad. And again, like I said, students are paid at least minimum wage. In this area, we pay above minimum wage. The one good thing about work-study, studies have shown those students who work on campus tend to get better grades. What tends to happen, you have to have a schedule. It allows you to schedule yourself. If you're going to work while you're in campus, while you're in college, a work-study job or a job on campus is a good thing to have because you are not taking care, you don't have to worry about transportation costs of traveling to some other place. If you work in an area that is in your major, you're getting valued experience. You get to know the people who are on campus, and it's a good thing sometimes to have connections with people other than just your fellow students and your teachers, because sometimes you need to have extra help in different places. If you're a work-study student, you have colleagues on campus who you're working with who can help you through things. The off-campus employment programs are generally community service, and those can be extremely good experience, especially if you can get one that's in your major. Student loans. Direct subsidized student loans are your need-based loans. Direct unsubsidized loans are your non-need-based loans. These are the interest rates that are listed currently, and what the caps are, that also changes each year. And I mentioned before that usually you don't have to pay a loan back until after you finish school or cease going to school. This is where the 6-month grace period comes in. It is understood that if you were in school and you've been going to school and you graduate, everybody is not as lucky to find a job the minute they walk out of school. Or even if you do get a job, it takes you some time to get yourself together. So this is what the grace period is about. It gives you 6 months to get yourself together so that you can then start repaying on your loans. The repayment period can vary between 10 to 30 years. There are a lot of different repayment schedules, and based on what your situation is, that will be something you would, at that point, try to figure out what's best for you as far as repayment is concerned. This is a chart that lets you know, based on your year in school, how much you can receive from a student loan. As you can see, as you gain experience and go from being a first-year student to a second-year student to a third or fourth-year student, the amount you can borrow does go up. There is a lifetime limit on loans also. Again, the 150%. One of the things, again, like I said before, though there's a lot of money out there to borrow, do not borrow more than you need, because this is something that does have to be repaid, and repaid with interest. For the parents, there are parent loans. The Federal Plus loans for parents and dependent undergrad students. The interest rates, again, change every year. This is the cap and the current interest rate. This is not a need-based loan. There is no grace period. Applicants must not have adverse credit history. In other words, your credit history, unlike the student loans where they do not check credit, they do check credit for parent loans. If you have credit problems, you can get a cosigner. But one of the things you need to look at again is how much you borrow. The annual loan limits equal the cost of attendance less any other aid. So remember we talked about cost of attendance in the beginning? All those different variables about how much it costs to go to school? Whatever other aid your student is getting is subtracted from that, and then the difference you can get in a parent loan. But again, be careful. This does allow you to make sure your child can afford to go to school, but do not get into the point that you borrow more than you actually need, because you too have to pay this back. And in most cases, you start paying this back immediately after you get it. You can defer, but interest occurs. Okay, state government. Again, the state of Maryland has robust, lots of programs. And I'm going to bring Mr. Isaiah Ellis up, and he's going to talk to you about the various things that the state of Maryland has to offer.
A little bit about who we are. The Maryland Higher Education Commission is a state agency. We're responsible for program approvals for our colleges, universities, and private career schools, as well as the administration of the state's financial aid program, which amounts to over $100 million every year. The programs that I'm going to discuss with you will cover the updates as it pertains to the 1920 as well as the 2021 academic year. So for my seniors that are here in the audience, you're looking at the 2021 or 2021 FAFSA and MISFA and all those information, because that's where you're actually going to be enrolled between July 1st, 2020 and June 30th, 2021. So I know she covered the cost of attendance, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But for this year, there's the Maryland Community College Promise Scholarship. There was a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of information that has changed over the years. As of right now, as of today, in order to apply for this particular award, the first thing that students will do is create an MDCAPS account. This account will allow you the opportunity to accept any award that the state of Maryland provides to you, as well as update enrollment information so we can make sure we're sending the funds directly to the right college or university, as well as let you know if you have been awarded any documentation that we may need for this particular scholarship, among others. Now, the FAFSA she covered on, that was the free application for federal student aid, but also students that are considered DACA students here in the state of Maryland have the opportunity to also complete what's called the Maryland State Financial Aid application. These students will not complete the FAFSA. They will complete what we nickname the MISFA. That's going to be available after November 1st via the MDCAPS account. Now, to also remain eligible or to be eligible, a student or their parent have to file state of Maryland income tax returns for the previous 3 years upon applying for college. For example, if you're a senior in school right now, we need the tax returns as far back as your sophomore year. Okay, make sense? As well as you have to apply to a community college, as if for this particular program, within the county that you have graduated high school from and or obtained your GED. Okay? Keep this in mind that the only way you can utilize this particular state scholarship program is if there's not a major that's the local community college offers that you plan to enroll in, and or you have a disability that can't be accommodated by that local community college and or regional community college, because some of our community colleges service multiple counties as well. We want to make sure you're also checking your email address, because when we're sending out documentation and informational sheets to you, letting you know if you've been awarded, if we need additional documentation, we're going to send it to the email address that we have on file. So make sure you try to check it every couple of months. If you change your email address, make sure you also update your MDCAPS account, because any award that you are awarded through the state of Maryland, you have only 2 weeks to accept the award. I'm going to say that one more time. You have 2 weeks to accept the award. So you want to make sure you have the correct and updated contact information as it pertains to our grants and scholarship programs. Also, additional eligibility. You must be eligible for in-state tuition. That's determined by the community college. That's what I was referring to as terms of the state income tax returns, not the federal, the state income tax returns. As well as you have to have a cumulative GPA of a 2.3 at the end of the first semester in your senior year. Now, this particular scholarship program, you must be full-time. We look at full-time as being 12 credits or more. So regardless if you took 12 one-credit courses, you took 6 two-credit courses, you took 4 three-credit courses, as well as 3 four-credit courses, it doesn't matter, because we're looking at 12 credits or more and in regards to the full-time. So you can take 20, it'll still be the same thing. For this particular scholarship program, it does have income limit requirements on it. You can't earn or is from a single-parent household more than $100,000. as well as if from a two-parent household or if you're married, you can't earn more than 150 of your AAGI. And you can obtain an associate's degree and a bachelor's, and you can be awarded another grant or scholarship that pays for tuition. Now, this particular scholarship program is also what's considered a gap-filling scholarship, which means that it's focused on the tuition and the fees at the community college. And let's say, for example, you receive the tuition and fees is $5,000. You receive a $3,000 grant and scholarship. There's a balance of $2,000. This is to come in and pay the remaining balance as long as funds are available. Make sense? All right. So note as well is that this is going to be utilized with the sequence of credit and non-credit courses that lead to a licensure and or certification, and as well, or participation in a registered apprenticeship program as well. Again, students with a GED can apply for this Community College Promise Scholarship. Now, keep in mind, this is different from some of the local Community College Promise Scholarship programs because this has a service obligation attached to it. For every year that a student receives the Community College Promise Scholarship, they'll also be required to work full-time. We look at full-time as being 35 working hours or more. So regardless if you have 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 2 jobs, or 1 job, we're looking at in terms of the total amount of working hours per week. A student can work in DC, West Virginia, they can work in Virginia, Delaware, or any other state as long as they have a residency here in the state of Maryland, as well as they're filing state income tax returns. So keep that in mind as it relates to the Community College Promise Scholarship. There's also the Guaranteed Access Grant. For this academic year is 2019-2020, it's $19,100. We are expecting when it's time for you to enroll at your local community college and or four-year institution for that number to increase several $100s. But right now it's at $19,100. How the student is going to apply is by completing the FAFSA and or the MISFA. You're not going to complete both of them. You're going to complete either one. If you are completing the FAFSA, you have to list a Maryland college or university on the FAFSA in order for us to pull down on that information. The deadline between the time range to do that is between October 1st when the FAFSA opens up and March 1st of 2020. So my seniors, you're going to have between October 1st, 2019 and March 1st, 2020. If you are a junior, you're going to have the opportunity to complete it between October 1st, 2020 and March 1st, 2021. For this particular award, we will pull down on the information and we will send notification out to students that also set up an MD-CAPS account. We may require additional documentation. You want to make sure you get that back to us on or before April 1st. So again, my seniors, you're going to complete the FAFSA and or the MISFA between October 1st or FAFSA between October 1st and 2019 and March 1st, 2020. The MISFA between November 1st and 2019 and March 1st, 2020. But keep in mind, regardless, you have up to April 1st, 2020 to submit any documentation that we need. The Guarantee Access Grant is also open for high school seniors as well as individuals with a GED as well. There are different eligibility requirements, so I implore you to visit our website depending upon if you're a high school senior or you're an individual that has received the GED as well. We also have an educational assistance grant. Simply by completing the FAFSA and or the MISFA, we will evaluate students for up to $3,000 of the educational assistance grant. Now, this particular grant, if a student has disabilities services that can't be accommodated by a Maryland Community College and or a Maryland four-year, under those circumstances, they can take this out of state with them. But also keep in mind that because we evaluate students based upon their submitted and completed FAFSA and or MISFA, typically the notification they'll receive is that you have been awarded. You have 2 weeks to accept the award, in which the student needs to go onto their MD-CAPS account and make sure they accept the award. Also keep note that if you are awarded any Maryland State Financial Aid program and you, at the first time of creating an MD-CAPS account, you indicated that you were going to several different institutions, whatever school you choose has to be the one that's updated on your MD-CAPS, or else they can't pull down on those funds. Make sense? So keep that in mind as well. There's also the campus-based educational assistance grants for those individuals that missed the March 1st deadline and or become ineligible for the guaranteed access grant but still meet the requirements for the educational assistance grants. But again, you want to file the FAFSA and or the MISFA on or before March 1st because funds are very limited and there's no guarantee that because a student misses the deadline that they will be able to still secure additional funds. There is a Senatorial Scholarship under the Maryland State Legislative Scholarship Program. What that is that that's a bunch of funds or a number of funds that go down to the local senators. Each district has one senator. So we implore you to contact that individual to find out what is their application procedure because we do not control that. All we can say that's in legislation is that a student must complete a SAT or ACT, has completed a FAFSA and or a MISFA, and contacts their local senator to determine what is their application process. It can be complicated, such as writing a 5-page essay, or it can be simple as in putting in your name and rotation of students to receive the award. But you must contact them because they'll try to award all students that are eligible in their district, but if they don't have your name, if you haven't contacted them, then you would not be considered. The Senatorial Scholarship can be used for undergraduate and as well as graduate programs. It can be used for full-time, part-time, half-time, and under certain circumstances, under the unique major, that you can take this out of state with you. When we look at a unique major, we're looking to see if another school or another institution here in the state of Maryland offers that particular program and is the curriculum similar. If not, under those circumstances, a student can take this particular award as well as with the approval from the local senator, they can take it out of state with them. We are also part of the Academic Common Market, which affords students the opportunity with the agreement of 20 different public states. They can receive in-state tuition at that public college or university. So just keep in mind, it's mostly the southern states. So you want to keep, if you plan to go out of state, you want to check and see and check with our office to determine if your major is considered unique and as well as if you can take part in the Academic Common Market. Just keep that in mind as well. Now there's a delegate program which does not require the FAFSA and or the MISFA on file. However, if it comes back to our office of student financial assistance, what they'll do is award students based upon the information they retrieve from the FAFSA and or the MISFA, and they're going to award it based upon the EFC. The max award is $11,800, but typically the average award is always between $500 to $2,000. While this senatorial is renewable for up to 4 years, the delegate you have to apply to each year. Again, this one can also be utilized for undergraduate and graduate programs, full-time, half-time, and part-time enrollment. But just keep in mind that you have to contact your local delegate, and actually I should say delegates, because there are up to 4 per district. So you can also receive this with the senatorial. Keep in mind that you cannot receive the Educational Assistance Grant and the Guaranteed Access Grant. However, you can receive a legislative scholarship with one of those different programs, so you can add up the dollars. So keep that in mind is also that each delegate may have their individual deadline. It may not be March 1st, it can be June, it can be February, but you want to make sure you contact them, ask them for their application process, and also ask them when does their applications open up and when do they close. Because some are very strict on their deadlines. So if you pass the deadline, you may not be able to use it as well. There's a 2+2 transfer scholarship for up to $2,000 for students that are enrolling in STEM majors and graduating from a Maryland community college. A STEM major is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There's majors related to those. Now just also keep in mind that the deadline is March 1st. They must submit an official college transcript as well as complete the 2+2 transfer scholarship application that is available through the MDCAPS account. If we require any additional documentation, we will let you know. And we'll also let you know the deadline into which to submit that documentation to us as well. But you must apply in the final semester of your community college career. There's also the part-time grant. The part-time grant is up to $2,000 for students that are not enrolled full-time. Also keep this in mind that students that are duly enrolled in high school, which means that they are still considered high school students, but they are taking college courses at the public or for private college or university here in the state of Maryland, there is a part-time grant to assist with those costs. Typically, this local school system pays the full cost of that, but just in case there's any remaining balance from their tuition and fees is to cover that. But also keep in mind that when it comes down to the tuition and fees, if you have a tuition waiver, you have some program that's paying for the tuition and fees, you can't receive two things that are paying for the full tuition and fees, okay? So let's say, for example, you have a tuition waiver and then you get a scholarship that's paying for the tuition. It's already waived the tuition, so there's nothing for that scholarship to pay for, so typically it goes back to the organization and they award it to other students. So just when you hear those words of what the scholarship or the grant is paying for, you have to understand that if it's already covered, it's not going to be able to be utilized unless the organizer and or the state says this program can be used for other expenses as well, such as room and board and books and supplies and transportation costs, etc. Only if it dictates that. Just keep that in mind as well. So there is also a new program as of July 1st, which is the Richard W. Collins III Leadership with Honor Scholarship, as a max award of $1,000. It's primarily for students that are considered of a minority group that will be enrolling in 4 of our HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities here in the state of Maryland. You have Bowie State University, you have Morgan State University, Coppin State University, as well as University of Maryland Eastern Shore. You have to complete the application available through the MD-CAPS account, as well as submit any documentation, documentation and letting us know that you are a member of ROTC program. ROTC is offered through the college universities. JROTC is the high school form of that. Also, we require any additional documentation. We'll let you know and let you know when to submit that information to us by. So keep that in mind. That is for our HBCU programs here in the state of Maryland. Also, you want to keep this in mind that with this particular program, this deadline is in July. So if you are eligible for this program and you wish to apply, you want to do so when the application opens up in July. You're going to start applying around that time. There's also the Cybersecurity Public Service Scholarship. This is for juniors in college and university. So first-time students that are enrolled for the first time is not eligible. They're eligible in the third year. This covers the tuition and mandatory fees as well as room and board. The application will be made available through MD-CAPS account, and as well as they have to have a verification showing that they are within 2 years of graduating in their approved cybersecurity program. It also includes majors that are related to cybersecurity as well. Students that are eligible for in-state tuition are eligible to apply for this program, but again, they must be within 2 years of graduation and have a cumulative unweighted GPA of 3.0 while enrolled in the college as well. Now, we also have a workforce shortage student assistance grant, which is within our workforce shortage areas. We typically look at those areas biannually, so every 2 years we're taking a look. But also keep this in mind, it's up to $4,000 if a student plans to go to a 4-year institution here in the state of Maryland, $2,000 if they plan to enroll in our 2-year institutions. We look at certain areas like child care, occupational therapy, teaching, and things like that. We have a list on our website, so I encourage you, if you're looking to get into one of those fields among others, to check out our website to see if that particular field or career interest might award you one of these particular awards. We do look for the official transcripts from all the institutions that the student has attended, as well as the students must complete the FAFSA. Now, if a student has been awarded, they'll receive it the following year, even if we look at a certain area and it's not considered a workforce shortage area any longer. The student will continue to receive it. They are ranked by their GPA, so the better you do in college, the better off you'll be. We have the Conroy Inquirer Memorial Scholarship, which covers tuition and fees and is not based upon need. It's primarily looking at those that are spouses of or children of those that were impacted by the events of 9/11. Also keep this in mind that this will cover the tuition and fees, and we will award all students that are eligible. So as long as you are eligible, we'll keep awarding the student. There's no cap out for this particular program. We have we can nickname the VAC. It's the Veteran of Afghanistan and Iraq Conflict Scholarship. It's up to $7,152. It's for those that were served in Iraq or the Afghanistan conflicts. It's extended to their spouses and families as well, and it must be for undergraduate students. Now, for my individuals with a student loan over their head, I know we enjoy those so much, and yes, I was being sarcastic. We have a student loan debt relief tax credit, which opens up between July 1st and September 15th. If you incurred at least $20,000 in student loan debt and you have at least $5,000 remaining, you may receive up to a $5,000 student loan tax credit, which can be used to pay down on your student loans. You have up to 24 months to utilize the tax credits to help show that you made those additional payments. But also keep in mind that if you do it within a year, you can apply the following year as well. You can take it out as a lump sum, or you can take it out as monthly payments. It's entirely up to you, whichever one you prefer. But just keep this in mind. It opens up, the application opens up July 1st, September 15th each year. The application is available online. All we're looking for is a statement or a statement from your lender, as well as transcripts showing that you went to an institution and you incurred student loan debt. Keep this in mind. It doesn't matter for your college and university, so you can actually go to college in California, Texas, New York, or Florida. Doesn't matter at all. If you incurred undergraduate student loan debt, that's fine. If you incurred graduate student loan debt, that is completely fine. We send out notifications on or after December 15th, so that's when, if you apply, that's when you want to start looking for the letter that you would take to your tax preparer. So again, for those of you that missed the deadline for this year, next year you want to make sure you send out that information to us between July 1st and September 15th. Thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Judy Taylor for the remaining of the presentation. Thank you.
As you can see, the state of Maryland has a lot of money for our students. So please heed what he said. What I'm going to show you now is where you can find all this information. All right. In your presentation, you have this picture. It has the state of Maryland's web link. When you go to this site, you will see a list of all the programs that he talked about. This is where you go. Please make sure you pay attention. There is a lot of money in the state of Maryland. Again, it's more, okay? This is a picture of MD-CAPS. He said you need to register with MD-CAPS. This is what the MD-CAPS site looks like. You register, you go in, you put your username, you set up a password, and this is how you can be communicated with. Fill the FAFSA, the MISFA out, but unless you do this, they can't get hold of you and you can't get hold of them, okay? He talked about unique majors. Again, need to go to the website. This is something that the state of Maryland offers that is not offered in a lot of states. Okay, back to, you've gotten your state scholarships, you've done the FAFSA, which we'll go into a little bit more. What about educational institutions? Again, make sure you check with your colleges to see what they offer that may be in addition to the federal government and the state. They've got need-based and merit-based programs. Again, based on your academics, other talents, athletics. One thing you need to be careful about is to make sure, if it is a scholarship that is only offered your freshman year, that you know that. You always ask, is it renewable? And if it is renewable, what do you have to do to keep it? If there's one that's only for freshman year, are there others that you can get as you become a second or third year, fourth year student? If it is renewable, do you have to have a certain major? Do you have to have certain grades? What do you need to do? Don't let yourself get something one year and then the next year you not have it and you're trying to figure out where the money went. Make sure you know ahead of time what your responsibilities are. Contact the college's financial aid office for applications and deadlines. But I'm also going to say, again, also contact your admissions offices, because in some cases, there may be things they offer incoming students that are not just through the financial aid office. Now, I'm going to give you an example. Here at Montgomery College, we have foundation scholarships. There are several organizations in the community that give money specifically to Montgomery County students, college students. And we have an online application. And I think we have some little cards outside. And we have a deadline. And you notice the deadline is June 30th for fall and December 31st for spring. It is very important that at each school you're applying to, you ask what kind of scholarships they have. Do they have a website you can go to and look at the scholarships? What are deadline dates? Is it an online application? Is it an application you have to physically fill out? Example, these are just some of the things we have here. But you need to make sure if you're applying to, say, 3 or 4 schools, 5 or 6, make yourself a spreadsheet. Make sure you put every school down. What is the admissions application deadline? What is the financial aid application deadline? What are the scholarship application deadlines? They all may be different. And make sure you're checking them off as you get them done so that you're not missing out on anything. This is what our webpage looks like. Ours happens to say paying for college. A lot of schools, it will say paying for college. It may say financial aid. The financial aid website may be under enrollment services, under admissions, but every school should have on their college website somewhere where there's information about their financial aid programs. So you need to look for that. Okay, let's move on to private sources. In addition to the state, the federal government, and institution, there are several private organizations that also give scholarships. Again, your foundations, your businesses, your churches and synagogues and temples, civic organizations, charitable organizations, where you work. Don't assume there's not a scholarship there. Ask. It may be nobody asked or nobody got it. Ask. There's a Coca-Cola scholarship. Kohl's has a scholarship. Pepco has a scholarship. Advil has a scholarship. Need to look for scholarships. A lot of them go unused because nobody applies. Deadlines, application procedures, and award amounts may be different. That is why it's extremely important that you go out and start looking early. And again, on that spreadsheet, put the different scholarships. What is due when? Who needs what? Again, begin researching early because they have different deadlines. Where can you go and look for these private sources? Your high school career center, online scholarship searches. A lot of them will have you create a profile where you can receive scholarship information and contact various providers. There's some scholarship websites we list here, but this is just a few. There are a lot of them out there. The www.finaid.org is a very good site to go to. There you can create a profile and it will give you all kinds of information on financial aid, different things that you need to know. It's a wealth of information. The Css Profile is another application in addition to the FAFSA. A lot of schools do not use the profile, but there are some schools that do, and a lot of private scholarship organizations use the Css Profile. Unlike the FAFSA, it is not free. It does cost money. And there are different versions of it based on where you may be going to school. So one of the things you need to check, again, all the schools you apply to, look and see their deadlines and look and see, do they ask you to do the profile? In a lot of cases, the profile deadline may be different than the deadline they give for you turning in information from your FAFSA. And the website is there, cssprofile.collegeboard.org. Okay, what's the financial aid process? There's pre-task, there's the task of completing the FAFSA, and there's post-task. Pre-task. If we have individuals in here who are not seniors, this is not for seniors. This is for your freshmen, your sophomore, and your juniors. There is a FAFSA forecaster, the early estimate EFC. You can go in there and put in all your information just like you fill out a FAFSA, and it will give you an idea of what you might be eligible for. It's sort of like a trial FAFSA. But make sure our seniors do not do this because this is not the real FAFSA. It says apply for an FSA ID, student and parent. This is a good time to do this early. The FSA ID is your electronic signature that you need and will need to sign your FAFSA. At least one parent needs to have it, and the student needs to have it. Parents, if you have multiple children who will be going to college, each child will need their own FSA ID, but the parent only needs the one. If you decide to go to school, parents, that's still your electronic signature. Collect financial documents to complete the FAFSA, 2018 income tax return, W-2. In other words, just like you're completing the FAFSA, but it's what you can do ahead of time so you can get in practice for doing the FAFSA. This is what the FAFSA on the website looks like. It's in English and in Spanish. When you go on, what you see across the top, type prepare for college, types of aid, who gets aid, those are from that website, finaid.gov. But this is what it will look like when you go on to apply. Now, you can do it on a desktop computer, laptop. It's going to look like this. It also is made to conform, so if you do it on a tablet, it will also conform to that. There is also an app now. My Student Aid mobile app. There's an app for everything. So now there's an app to apply for financial aid. You can complete the FAFSA on it. Same protections as the website, and it's available for Android and iOS. You can go to the different stores. You can go to the Apple store. You can go to the Google store, whatever they're called. Young people probably know that better than me. But anyway, there is an app now to apply. The good thing about completing the app, again, same protections, but what happens is you can be in different places. So if the student is one place and the parent someplace else, you can go on and it allows you to save. It forces you to do a password, and you can be in different places and complete your portion of the app. It asks you who you are. And so what comes up is information based on who's completing the application. Benefits of doing it online or mobile. Built-in error, built-in edits, so you don't make as many errors. The skip logic, so if there's something you don't need to complete, you don't have to complete it. Detailed instructions, they're help hints. So if you run into a problem, you can push a little button to the side and it gives you the hints you need for help. It allows you to do it quickly. There used to be years ago a paper application that took 6 weeks. Basically, the online one is 24 to 48 hours. Ability to use the Irs Data Retrieval tool to securely transfer Irs information. This is the best way to go. Schools will love you when you do this, okay? This means we don't have to ask you for a lot of extra information in a lot of cases. Everybody can't do the Irs Data Retrieval tool, but if you can, as you fill out the form, it will present you with this alternative. Check it. If you can do it, it will allow you to do it. It makes life much more simple for you. You don't have to be collecting tax returns and looking for things. It will automatically bring the information down. One thing I'm going to say, because at this point everybody is very concerned about identity theft, it will make you answer questions and make sure you're you. You probably should have a copy of your tax return with you so you know how you filled it out. For instance, if you live on, let's say, Blossom Drive, if on your tax return you wrote Blossom, D-R-I-V-E, that's exactly what you'll need to put on this. Because if you put DR, it may not take. It's looking for information that only you should have. If you spelled your name out and you put a period after the middle initial, it looks for that kind of thing. In other words, there are a lot of things your neighbor may know about you, but they may not know exactly how you filled out the information on your tax return. At this point, as of this year, if you did the amended return, you can also do the data retrieval to get your initial application. Because what happens when the school gets your information, it will say that we will ask you for the amended return, but we don't have to get other documentation if you've done the DRT, because we know the original is directly from IRS data. There is a FAFSA on the web worksheet. It is not available yet. It generally comes out around the time the FAFSA comes out. What it does is it gives you the question. So if you're a person who doesn't want to directly sit down and input, it gives you the idea you can, on a piece of paper, write all the answers down, so when you sit down to input, you have it in front of you. Some people like that better than just doing it from scratch. The worksheet, basically, it has general information, as does the FAFSA. It's the same thing: your social security number, your citizenship status, marital status, conviction of drug, professional sale. That is a question on the FAFSA. But when it asks the question, it asks you, while you were receiving federal aid, were you convicted of drug, possession, or sale? Okay? If you have never gotten financial aid before, federal aid, then you couldn't have been convicted. Even if you were convicted, you couldn't have been convicted while you got it. Okay? So be careful. Don't just say, that's one that's self-reporting. Selective service registration, if required. At this point, all young men 18 and over, 18 to 26, are required to register with selective service. If you have not done so, there is a question on the FAFSA, and you can check it, and it will help register you. It asks for the highest education level completed by father and mother. These are some of the questions that are asked for some of the different state aids. Dependency status. That is another thing that shows up. FAFSA asks questions to determine dependency status for Title IV aid. Basically, for IRS purposes, whose information do we need? In most cases, if you are under the age of 24 and you're not a veteran, you are considered dependent and you need parent information. Tax income and other financial information. It asks questions, and it gives you, what is a dislocated worker? It gives you a definition of that. That is basically somebody who was working in a job and now may be working in a job that's not paying them quite as much as the other job. There's a definition out there for that. It asks about means programs. Are you getting aid to dependent children? Are you getting Social Security? Are you getting any of the welfare programs? It asks you various questions, because if you're getting some of those programs, you may be able to skip through because they're not going to ask you for certain information they know you don't have. Assets. You may be asked about your assets, and if you have untaxed income. And one of the good things, like I said, by doing the worksheet, you can kind of flesh out all these things before you get to fill out the FAFSA. But if there are questions, as you're filling out the FAFSA, if you don't understand something, the helps and hints are there, so it will explain it to you. Additional information. You can list up to 10 schools on the FAFSA. There is a check where you can get, and it will give you the school codes. You can go on all the school websites and get the codes, but if you don't know, you can check and you give the name of the school, the state it's in, and you will get the code. If you want to apply to more than 10 schools, put the top 10 here. Once they get your information, then you can go back and take one off and put another one on. Ask you about housing plans. Remember earlier I said we look at those things as far as making a budget. Are you planning on staying with family? Are you planning on staying on campus, off campus? What are your housing plans? Because you may get a different budget based on that. It asks you who's the preparer. If it is the parent or the student, they're not a preparer. That's who you are. Some people have a preparer who is not a family member do it. I would recommend you do not have a preparer. If you need help, that's what those of us at the schools are for. Okay? And regardless of whether you're coming to Montgomery College or not, we are your community college. We have people on all 3 campuses who will help you fill out forms. Do not pay anybody to prepare the form for you. And a lot of times, if you have an accountant and stuff do it, we find the information is incorrect. Just a warning. Signatures. Required signatures, one parent for the dependent student and the student. Again, that's where the FSA ID comes in. And there is a website when you go on to the, and I think I have that in the presentation, but it's when you go on to fafsa.ed.gov, all the information is there. You can register and get your FSA ID. And like I said, that'll be your electronic signature that you will use throughout the process. Okay, what are the things that generally go wrong? Parents, when it asks for Social Security numbers, it's talking about the students or yours, depending on where you're filling it out. Do not put the parent's Social Security number where the student's goes, and vice versa. Do not put brothers and sisters. Be careful you do not transpose numbers, because this is a check that goes through to make sure you're really you and not trying to steal somebody else's identity. Divorce, widowed, remarried, parental information. When you fill out the FAFSA, if you are married, you are married. If you have been divorced and you are remarried, at the time you're filling out the form, you're married. The student is giving information for the parent they live with most. So if there's a step-parent that's married to the parent, those are the parents they're talking about, not the natural parent who may be not the custodial parent. And it will give information about that too. And you check which one it is, because also it looks at this to figure out what kind of tax information you're giving. Income earned by parent or step-parent. Again, that tends to be a lot of times when students, if it is a situation where the parents have separated or divorced, they will give their natural parents information, even though they're not married to each other anymore. You only need one. If the one you live with, and if that person's remarried, it will be your step-parents' information. Untaxed income, if you have any. U.S. income taxes paid. And this is one reason why it's good to use the data retrieval, because you're not trying to figure all this out. But your U.S. income tax paid is a specific field which it will tell you to go to, and it will give you the number on the form to fill out. This is not what was taken out of your check on the W-2 form. Okay? So pay attention to what it's asking you. Household size. There's a specific definition for household size. It tells you who they want you to list in the household and at what period of time people need to live in that household. It will also say, in the case of a dependent student, people who are supported by more than 0.5% by the parent. Now, you may not live in the household as a student, but you still are considered part of that household. But all the other people who are in that household who get more than half their support from your parents would be listed. But if you have relatives who are living with you who are not getting that support, they should not be listed. If you have older brothers and sisters who have moved out of the house and are not getting that support, they should not be listed. But it gives you a specific definition. Then it asks you, of all those people you listed, who's in college? Parents, if you are in college, you're not listed here. But if you are in college and you're at least half-time, that is something you may want to let the institution know. We as institutions can add parents back in. Not every institution does it, but you need to ask the question, because it may make a big difference in the amount of aid your children get. Real estate and investment worth. Your primary house that you live in is not considered real estate or investment worth. If you have another house that may be an investment house, if you have stocks and bonds, maybe, but please do not list the house you live in, your primary residence, as an investment. Okay, you didn't make any mistakes, you got everything filled out, FAFSA's done, now what happens? You should receive a student aid report. That contains the EFC, the Effective family contribution we talked about earlier. You want to review the student aid report and make sure it's correct and you don't need to make corrections. You can use that Fsa Id again to make corrections. Again, you can add and delete schools. Like I said, you can only put 10 on, but if you want to add some other schools, this is where you can do it. You need to follow up with all the schools. There is a verification process. You may or may not be picked for verification. This is something the schools do not know until they get the application. If you're picked for verification, we may need to collect additional documents. And each school may have their own specific documents that they collect. Again, that's why I say make a spreadsheet, so you can have all this down so you don't get confused of who needs what. If you have special circumstances, you need to communicate that with the schools. For instance, when you filled out the FAFSA, you gave the income data that it asked for the year it asked for. And since that time, something has happened. There's been a loss of income. There's been excessive medical bills. Somebody has passed away. A job has got lost. Those are the kind of things that are special circumstances that may change your financial aid and your financial ability to pay. Those are the things you need to let schools know. There are forms that they will give you to fill out that will help you to flesh out what your new situation is, and then we can look at it and see if we can give you more aid. Reminders and resources, deadlines. If nothing else, here are deadlines. Again, I go back to the spreadsheet. Make sure you write down all the deadlines and when things are needed, because there are a lot of them. And with financial aid, a lot of times as early bird gets the worm, some of the money that we get a certain amount, and it's first come, first serve. With the scholarships, it's especially important that you follow the deadlines. And like I say, different schools have different deadlines, different scholarships have different deadlines. Within a school, there are various deadlines. Use caution. Where do you go for help? Again, deadlines are important. Be careful when you're completing the financial aid forms. Make sure they're committed correctly and on time. Keep track of all the deadlines. State deadlines, college, university deadlines, scholarships. If you hear nothing else tonight, hear deadlines. Hear deadlines, okay? Be careful. Filling out the FAFSA is free. Remember I talked about the profile form that costs money? It costs money. The FAFSA is free, the free application for federal student aid. There are scams out there everywhere. There is a website that looks very much like the FAFSA website, and it will charge you money. If anybody is asking you for money, you need to look the other way. Avoid scholarship scams. People do not ask you for money to give you money, okay? Don't pay anybody for any help. If you think something's suspect, check with the Better Business Bureau about legitimacy of the financial aid consultants or scholarship service or anything. I always give the example. I have 2 children. One was an extremely good student. One was very bright, but was not that good a student, okay? I got a call from an invitation to go to this workshop because they were going to give my son, the one who did what he wanted to do, got out of school but didn't particularly do it with all of his might. And what a wonderful student he was, and he was going to get all these scholarships. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You know, come to this workshop so we can get it. And the minute I said, okay, when is it? And I said, well, that's good. I'm a financial aid professional. They hung up on me because they knew that I knew something was wrong. And if I got there, I would know they were a scammer. There are people who will tell you you need to take out insurance to get financial aid. No, you don't. People will tell you they can guarantee certain things. Everybody's generally eligible for a student loan. You don't have to take out insurance to get it. And the only thing they can guarantee you generally is the loan. You have to apply for everything else. So be very careful. Do not pay anybody. Resources, Financial Aid TV. If you go on to our website, you can check out Financial Aid TV. There are videos about financial aid. There are other generic MC videos. There are all kinds of things. But check all of your schools you're interested in. A lot of us have Financial Aid TV. A lot of things are general, and they're just basic things you need to know about financial aid. But also, a lot of the schools may have individual videos that are specific to their institution. And this is something you can look at 24/7. It is fully handicap accessible. It will talk to you, or you can read it, or you can look at it. But then the nice little short videos are just, if you have a question, they may answer it for you. Where else can you get help? Again, High School Career Center. I can't say that enough. High school seniors, especially if you're in Montgomery County, your career offices are the place. Your career counselor should be your best friend. They have a wealth of information, and they have scholarships that they turn out daily. But they don't know to give them to you unless you go and visit them. Your college and university financial aid offices. Talk to all of us. Call. Make sure you know. Again, check and see what information they have for you. Department of Education. This is the 1-800-FED-AID number. If you have problems completing the form, you can call them. They will walk you through, or there's something specific going on, your Fsa Id didn't work, something, you can call that number and they will walk you through it. Again, Student Aid on the web, the www.studentaid.gov. This is a wonderful website. Become familiar with it. A lot of the things you need, you will find there. If you need help filling out the FAFSA, we will be having a special day, FAFSA Fever, which we have every year, where you can receive help completing your FAFSA or starting your FAFSA or just asking questions. If you need to get started, we can get you started. If you've already started and you have a question, we can do that. This year, it will be here on the Rockville campus on Saturday, November the 2nd. You should have this flyer also in the things we passed out to you. You need to hopefully register so we know how many people we'll have. If you happen to be a student who will be going to Montgomery College, we also will pull a drawing from everybody who shows up and get in our foundation will be giving scholarships for those students. But if you need help and you know friends who need help, please share this information. We'll be here to help on that Saturday from 12 to 3, and we will have labs set up so you can go in and finish the process, get started, ask questions, whatever.